We're talking about some Canadian legends here, so of course for this one, well, I had to dress up a bit. Let's get into it.
I'll smoke it every. I can't all sing a Dixie Dixie, so we dance the sidewalk clean.
Before the Tragically Hip would establish themselves as one of the most popular rock bands to ever emerge from the great country of Canada. Before the Tragically Hip would find themselves inducted into both the Canadian Music Hall of Fame and Canada's Walk of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, the newest members of the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, Tragically Hip.
Before the Tragically Hip would lose their frontman Gord Downey after a brave battle with terminal brain cancer.
We lost one of the very best of us this morning. Gord was my friend, but Gord was everyone's friend. It's who we were.
Before we get into the intro, let me know your favorite The Tragically Hip song in the comments down below. Now, according to the folks over at the BBC, The Tragically Hip, they're the most Canadian band in the world. And really, is there anyone who would disagree with that sentiment? I think not. Now, the New York Times, they once defined them as the band that has come closest to defining Canada's cultural identity. Now, we're talking about rock and roll legends, and I'm actually lucky enough that I'm getting the opportunity to sit down with the band members a little later this week. So in honor of the 30th anniversary of their hit record Road Apples, which will soon see a deluxe box set released on November 12th, well, why don't we circle back to the band's beginning? Now, to look back on the massive success and the legacy that is the Tragically Hip, well, band members will actually be stopping by the Before Their Famous studio a little later this week, and we're going to be able to delve a whole lot deeper into the early years of the band, of course leading up to the release of the album that really put them on the map, Road Apples, and also opening up their deluxe edition box set that is coming out just this week. So make sure you do not miss that. Subscribe to Before They're Famous. We'll be dropping it on Sunday. All right, now let's get into this video. The four original members of the Tragically Hip, bassist Gord Sinclair, drummer Johnny Fay, lead guitarist Rob Baker, and vocalist Gord Downey, well, they all grew up in close proximity to one another in the surrounding area of Kingston, Ontario. In fact, Sinclair and Baker, they actually grew up across the street from each other, and they've been best friends since the time they were toddlers. Now, Downey, meanwhile, he grew up in the neighboring small town of Amherst View, and all four men, well, they would meet while attending a high school at the Kingston Collegiate and Vocational Institute, or KCVI for short. Of the entire group, only Downey didn't come from some sort of cross-section of the Kingston elite. Baker, Sinclair, and Fay, they were all sons of doctors, deans, judges, or school teachers. Meanwhile, Downey's only real claim to fame was boasting an eventual Stanley Cup winning coach in Harry Sinden as his godfather.
In grade 9 drama, he performed a mime to the music of The Exorcist that people talked about and said, wow, like what a presence. So the dance and the movement was sort of legendary even in grade 9 and grade 10.
In 1983, these young men formed the band we now know as the Tragically Hip. Early on, they included saxophonist Davis Manning in their ranks, but in 1986, he would be replaced with Paul Langlois on rhythm guitar. Now, naming themselves after a sketch from the 1981 comedy Elephant Parts, well, they soon began to book shows in and around Queen's University campus at sites like Clark Hall Pub, Alfie's, and the Kingston Artists Association. Now, at this early stage in their career, the Tragically Hip, they played the kind of music that they wanted to hear themselves at bars and venues. So they covered material by the Rolling Stones, Marvin Gaye, and even the Monkees. This was to ensure that their audience was having the best time possible. But they would also try to sneak original material into their sets, despite the fact that most venues, well, they demanded that they only perform covers. So what was their solution? Well, they drum up a story about how some of their original songs were actually rare tracks from other more famous artists' unreleased albums. Pretty damn clever if you're asking me. Gord Downey's unique ability to connect with a live audience would help them develop a loyal fan base around the Kingston area. Now, soon after, they took to traveling all around Southern Ontario while honing their unique style and their sound. When looking back at their earliest days and Downey's impact in particular, well, Baker, he told the Toronto Star, playing with him on stage, you didn't know what was going to happen. He might just take a left turn or sing new lyrics or start a new story. And you just play intuitively off each other, and we became very good at that. After a particularly memorable performance at the Horseshoe Tavern in Toronto in 1986, mind you, that's the year I was born, well, the Hip, they caught the attention of RCA Records president Bruce Dickinson, who then signed the band to his US label before releasing the Hip's self-titled EP the following year. Now, though the Hip sound had yet to come into its own, especially in regards to Downey's lyrical abilities, well, the project, it teased their potential, and songs like Small Town Bringdown, as well as Last American Exit, well, it signaled the genius that was to come. In 1989, the band, they were in Memphis, Tennessee, recording their second studio album, Up to Here, and further refining their sound by creating legendary hits like Blow at Hideout and New Orleans is Sinking. Now the album would help establish the band in Canada and earn them a 1990 Juno Award for Most Promising Group of the Process. Now if Up to Here paved the way for their success, then 1991's Road Apples cemented the Tragically Hip's road to superstardom. Now originally given the working title of Saskadelphia, well MCA would reject every single title the band dreamt up as being too Canadian before they finally accepted the band's joke suggestion, which was Road Apples. Now for some reason, the folks at MCA, they thought the Hip, well, they were referring to songs written on the road. And you know, not like horse shit, but hey, went right over their head and everyone else loved it. Despite the funky title, well, the album, it would turn into one of the band's biggest commercial successes. Now it included some of the band's best known songs, including Little Bones, Fiddler's Green, Long Time Running, and Three Pistols. Now needless to say, from that point on, well, the Tragically Hip, they were off and running. Now as I mentioned in the intro, with the 30th anniversary of Road Apples just around the corner, well, the Tragically Hip will be coming into our studio later this week to discuss the comprehensive deluxe CD and vinyl plus Blu-ray audio box set, and of course we'll be delving a whole lot deeper into everything about Road Apples. As I mentioned before, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Now over the course of their entire career, the band, they would release a total of 13 albums and they would sell over 10 million copies worldwide. And if the 90s went down as their most commercially successful decade, then the 2000s were when they established their longevity as an artistic force. Now the band, they continue to churn out music at a prolific pace, and their passionate fan base, well, they would gobble up each and every new release. This helped albums like Music at Work, In Between Evolution, and We Are the Same rocket to the top of the Canadian charts. But then in 2015, lead singer Gord Downie, he would be diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Now suddenly the clock, it was ticking, and the band, well, they knew it. Now they had already been working on what would become their final studio project, Man Machine Poem, but they kicked recording into high gear to get it finished. Now when the album was completed, they set to work with the unviable task of letting the rest of the world know that Gord Downie, well, he was tragically sick.
Gord has a primary brain tumor. This is one that started from within the brain itself. It's not cancer that is spread from another part of the body.
After having the majority of his brain tumor removed during surgery, well, Downie would undergo 6 weeks of daily radiation treatment combined with an oral chemotherapy to combat his illness. With as much strength as he could muster, well, Downie and the other members of the Hip, well, they then set out on a 15-city, 30-show tour across Canada in the summer of 2016, starting in Victoria, BC, and ending in their hometown of Kingston, Ontario. Tickets of each concert, they sold out within minutes, and every single city along the way, well, they hosted some type of pre-concert party to raise money for Downie's foundation. And the tour, well, it was documented in the film Long Time Running, which would go on to premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival. Their final performance at the K-Rock Centre in Kingston, it would be broadcast live on the CBC to over 11 million viewers across the country. Now every Hip fan, he tuned in to pay their final respects to one of Canada's most talented and treasured artists. A little over a year later, well, Gord Downie, he would lose his battle against cancer, passing away while surrounded by his family and friends in September of 2017. Now rather than replace the unreplaceable, well, the other members of the band, they simply decided to disband and let their legacy as one of Canada's most important bands, well, speak for itself. After that, we didn't hear a lot from the Hip for a very long time, but eventually the remaining members would collaborate on the release of 6 previously unreleased tracks from the Road Apples sessions. Be sure to keep a lookout for the Road Apples box set when it drops on November 12th, and keep your eyes peeled for further potential releases from the Hip's vault, because it's apparently stock full of unreleased material. Now this video was a little short and sweet, but like I said, we're going to be learning a whole lot more from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I mean, talking with the band. What am I doing? Horse's mouth, Road Apples. The Canadian me is truly coming out. Anyways, guys, be sure to tune into our interview. It's dropping on Sunday. Of course, I'll be there. The band members will be there. It's going to be, the box set will be there. It's going to be crazy. My name, of course, is Michael McCrudden, and I'll see you guys in another video. Boom! Oh yeah, if you're watching this after the fact, there's a link to the interview down below.